Welcome back to another episode of the Capes and Tights podcast right here on capesandtights.com. I'm your host, Justin Soderberg. This episode, we welcome Blake Morgan, the host of Blake's Buzz, the editor-in-chief over at Geek Network, the chief operations manager, or whatever you want to call it, over at Metal Ninja Studios, as well as the publicist over at Wicked Tree Press. Blake and I both host comic book related shows, so we thought we'd chat about the comic book industry as well as hosting shows and all that stuff and way much more, so much more on here. So check that out. But before you do, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky, Threads, all that stuff, as well as like, share, rate, review, all that stuff over on Apple and on Spotify and all your major podcasting platforms. But this is Blake Morgan of Blake's Buzz in the Geek Network right here on the Capes and Tights podcast. Enjoy, everyone. Welcome to the Capes and Tights podcast. Blake, how are you today?
I'm doing good, man. I'm glad. It's nice not to be the one that has to remember to push record for once.
Well, now I'm looking at myself. I'm like, wait, it does tell us we're recording, so we are good. Microphone's good. I did this, so I use a MacBook and I use a Tascam 4x4 as my interface. And whenever I unplug the USB-C cable from my MacBook to take my MacBook somewhere else, and then I come back, I plug it back in, it makes me restart the Tascam before it recognizes on the computer.
Yeah.
And so I've done it before where I haven't gone through my checklist and I like go and I'm like, okay, things look good. Awesome. And I get to the end of it and it recorded the entire time with my AirPods. And like, it turned out okay. I mean, it wasn't awful, but it was like one of those things where I'm like, I'm the one that's supposed to have the professional microphone set up. You're the one that's supposed to be in a closet somewhere trying to record this.
The first show I did after I got the Shure, the podcast mic, right? Like I get this and it was Eric Palicki, who was the guest. And in StreamYard, I didn't have it. I had the wrong mic selected. So like the laptop mic, so it sounded like I was in a public bathroom. Like the whole interview, I was like, "Oh, good thing I got this $400 microphone." And I just
sitting on the other side going, "It doesn't sound that great. I don't know why you spent that kind of money on it."
I know, yeah, it's like and like my interface, like I like the loop sounded good, like the monitor, so that all sounded good. It just wasn't using the right input. And then now I have the Rodecaster, and it's awesome. But there's been two times, man, where it let me down bad, and one of them, like the software, like all the software on my PC, I use a PC. So like all the software on my PC, the Rode software just didn't work one day. So the Rodecaster didn't work. This is like 5 minutes for a live stream, right? So like guests are in the green room. They're like, "What, Blake? I can't hear you." And I'm like, and I went and got my wireless mics, which are Rode. They're not working. I mean, I fixed it real fast. But when you have like 5 minutes before you're supposed to go live, you're not thinking clearly. You're not like, "Oh, I wonder if it's a software issue." You're just like, everything's on fire. And so, but
let's get my phone out. We'll just do this via phone,
right? Yeah, like just fire up Skype. Like I don't know.
And I think some of it is that, Blake, on your level and even my level of doing this, we're not anywhere near the pinnacle, if that makes any sense. Like we understand that we're lucky enough to be able to talk to these people. I think you're in agreement with me on that. And the fact that if our shit's not going well, we feel bad. We start to go, oh crap. Like this is like, they took time out to talk to us. This is great. If they're the ones, their shit that goes wrong, we're like, whatever, we'll figure it out. I'm lucky enough to have them on my podcast.
Yeah. Exactly.
So it's like, it's a stressful moment where you start to sweat and then you're doing the rest of the podcast with like wet armpits and you're just like, oh, this is awesome. No, it's a fun thing trying to make sure you press record, make sure things are doing correctly. Oh, I got a new computer and I use Zoom, and Zoom, lets you record dual channel. So like you're recording right now under one channel, I'm recording under another. So afterwards I can do some editing and so on and so forth. Well, I forgot that's a setting you have to set up. And so like I did my first recording back using this new computer and installing Zoom, and it didn't record two different channels. Luckily, the person I talked to also used a professional microphone. So it worked out. But it's like when I did my very first podcast ever, it didn't work. It never worked. Like the whole thing just sounded like we were in a box. It was just a horrible thing. and you can't ever recreate that. Like, it's not like if we have this discussion, we're bantering back and forth. It's not like, okay, last time you talked about this, so when we re-record this episode, make sure you bring that up so we can talk about it again.
Yeah. Yeah.
It never works.
I have to send an email. I had a real cool interview. It was a WeTransfer link, and I downloaded it, and then when I went to edit it, the audio was bad. Like it was like corrupted. I was like, okay. And then I went to like try and re-download it, and it was gone. Right. So like, and no one has the backup footage. So I have this really killer interview that's dead. I can't use any of it. And the creator emailed a couple weeks ago and was like, hey, did that interview ever go live? So now, not only do I have to be like, hey, real sorry I made you wait 3 weeks for a reply. Also, I can't use that. But I'm timing it is my idea to say I'm gonna do a good. He's got some books coming out this week, so I was gonna do a real cool, like a real good review. It's a good book, so like I'm not having to like cheesecake anything, right? But like a nice write up, good review. Post it, share it, be like, hey man, I'm so sorry. I got the review out for your book though, and this happened, and I'm so sorry. And if you give me another chance, I'd love to do another interview. But if you're busy, I understand. So that's my plan. But it was a great chat, and he said some really cool things. And I mean, I'll remember it forever. But sorry, audience, like you may not. I'm hoping he maybe gives me another shot.
Yeah.
And if he does, I didn't get to at the time. I didn't get to read some of what he like. He had a couple books out that I wasn't aware of. So like, if we did it, I would be. I mean, I go in pretty over prepared, right?
Yeah.
So like, oh man, the other day, like I read like I read like 20 something issues, like 20 something issues, like before an interview, and still I was like, I didn't get everything read I wanted to. And my friend was like, "You're an idiot! Like you like set these impossible. You have 1 week of like
Yes.
plus all your other stuff, day job, other comic stuff, any now Geek Network stuff now,
Yeah.
like." And you're like, oh, I'm gonna read like this dude's whole bibliography in a week. Like, you can't do it, and anyway, but I like to do that, over prepare, right? So
Yeah.
that if you don't, if you're not as prepared as you want to be, you're still more prepared than most. I don't know. It's worked for me so far. I don't know. So
I mean, most of our guests that I know we talk about here, at the podcast are current. Like they have stuff that's out now. This is not just like,
yeah.
hey, I want to shoot the shit with so and so, so I'm gonna get them on. Sometimes it's that, but sometimes it's like most of the time there's a reasoning behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I feel the same way. I had the creative team or the writers from the cabinet on, Jordan Hart and David Ebeltoft. And
Nice.
David's also a screenwriter, so I also felt myself over preparing watching some of his movies. I'm like,
Oh yeah.
we're not going to talk about the movies at all on the podcast, but if it comes up, I want to be like, I've seen Here
Yeah.
Alone, and I've seen. But then I got pissed at myself because his current movie hadn't been released yet until like a week later.
Mm.
And so I was like, I can't even say anything about his current movie that has coming out. But yeah, I felt like I was like trying to prepare for something I was never going to talk about anyway. But
Yeah, man, you get sometimes though that moment, right? And you drop like a little nugget or whatever, and they're like, oh, this dude knows his shit, right? And this dude, it's shocking. I mean, dude, people have told me so many times, like, and thanked me, like, thank you for actually reading the books before an interview. Thank
yeah,
you for actually like being prepared to discuss the stuff. And I'm like, what? The first time I heard that, I was it like blew me away. But then I thought about it, and I was like, what are you going to talk about? Like, I'm pretty good on the mic. Okay. So like I go off vibes. I may have something I want to ask somebody. A lot of times I forget. I get caught up in the moment. The conversation goes one way, and but you know, I go back to the literature when if I feel the conversation lulling, if I feel like whatever we're talking about is about to wrap up, right? I'll be like, I'll bring it back to the book. I'll be like, hey, like, and then you got this coming out next week or whatever, and that part I can do because I'm prepared. If you don't know, like, how are you going to talk, even if it's a half-hour interview, let
yeah,
alone like an hour and a half, or if they hang out for a while and you have like a big conversation, right? Like what that blew my mind. And people still say that to me, like, oh man, like you really like you really took the time to like think about the books. And I'm like, you took the time to like come and be on my show.
Yeah.
And I know we help them. I know it's promoting books and stuff, but like, there also comes a point like when you get like these crazy killer guests that don't have to do many interviews
No,
anymore, right? And they do your show, and it's like, okay, like you're doing me the favor here, and
you're this is I'm getting way more benefit of this than you are for sure.
exactly.
Like, yeah. I mean, I was gonna say is some of these things is you can see when I follow you on social media too, even personally. You get excited for these guests still, and that's what shows me that you're also excited to do this still.
Mm.
Like, it's not one of those things. Obviously, it's a grind. Obviously, we both know this. Like, I have a son who's about to be turned 3. My daughter just turned 6 weeks old.
Oh
I have a
man.
full-time job as a creative director for a brewery. I do this. I have other, I have other stuff that I do, and so there's a lot that goes on, and so it's a lot of work, and I'm not trying to pat myself on the back here, but it is a lot of work.
You should though. We all
But
should.
it's fun, and so we enjoy this, and that's part of it. It's like, why
Yeah.
do you do this, and why will you continue doing this for the foreseeable future? And it's like, it's the small rewards, and some of them are my favorite. One of my favorite writers of all time is Brian Michael Bendis, and I got him on the podcast. It was like the most amazing thing.
Hmm.
Brian doesn't have to come on my podcast and talk to
Right.
me about stuff. You think Bendis out there, and it was Bendis and Maleev. Those two guys don't need my help. And so to me, I benefited far greater than they did.
Yeah.
And it's possible that one or two people didn't know they had a Dark Horse book coming out, and
Hmm.
that's they bought the book. So like, if I got one or two sales out of it, I'm cool with that. But I'm thinking, if you're a Brian Michael Bendis fan, you knew Masterpiece is coming out. I didn't have to tell any of my listeners that
Hmm.
it was coming out. And so there are definitely ones that help you more than you help them. And
Yes.
I for sure think that. And then there's other ones you're like, you need my help, don't you?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I'm not gonna name names here, but there's definitely people like, please come. Can I come on your
Yeah.
podcast? Like, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Or
We can make it work.
and then there's some that I don't know, like every now and then I try to be nice and chill, but like I also know sometimes like I have people like you may catch me on like a on an 11-hour work day,
Yeah,
but I mean I still get emails sometimes where it's like uh, people's more demanding than asking to like be on the show, and it's like I get it. I get that people are hungry and thirsty out there, and they need to promote. But yeah, it's sometimes I'm like, oh, I forgot, like I owe you money. Wait, no, I don't. What? Why? Why? Let's talk about how to write one of these emails, maybe. But not.
no,
That doesn't happen a lot. But it's still sometimes it's just like it's like wow, okay, wow. Yeah, I can't. I'm sorry, I didn't ask you already to be on my show. I wasn't privy to
yeah.
the.
Well, that's it. It goes back to reading the source material, the material written by the
Mhm.
people that you have on your show. Is that I used to have a co-host when we first launched this podcast. I had a co-host who then moved to Illinois, and we're doing this virtually, right? We're doing this via the internet anyway, and so we're like, oh, we'll just keep on doing it. And he got a job that the schedules weren't going to work out and all that stuff. So I was like, hey, I'll just go at it solo. It's not a big deal. And that's when I started booking a lot more guests instead of just talking comics in general.
Yeah.
And we had a couple of people who at the very beginning that were like, at the very beginning, were like, we'll take whoever wants to come on. Like, you want to pitch a book that's a horrible, horrible book, whatever, come on, because we're just trying to get someone to talk to. But there was one that we got an advanced copy, and I'm not going to mention this, and this was years ago anyway. Um, and he read the book, and I read the book, and he messages me on Facebook and goes, we're not going to do this episode, right? He's like, because there's no way I'm going to be able to do a half an hour, 20 minutes at all
Yeah.
about talking about this book, because this book is not good. And I was like, no, we're not. I'm gonna have to say, and I'm trying to be like not a dick about it. So I'm trying to be like, hey, yeah, scheduling, we'll talk about it, so on and so forth. And we just never rebooked and never
Mhm.
did anything with it. But yeah, so the source material makes sense because I mentioned that, and you're probably similar. You're not just gonna talk to people because someone's forcing you to talk to them. Um, you talked to Kyle Starks this week, which I have. Kyle Stark is one of my favorite guests of all
He's
time.
cool. That
Kyle's
was
freaking
fun.
amazing. The problem is I like basketball and he likes basketball, and so we could literally just talk basketball the entire episode, and that would just not be fun for a lot of comic book fans. But but yeah, like, I like Kyle. That's why I would have him on the podcast. I like his
Yeah.
work. I like his art. I like his writing. Everything. So luckily, we live in a situation where Blake's Buzz, you get people who you want to talk to. This
Yeah.
is not, no one's forcing you. No one's putting a gun to your head and being like, you need to have Kyle
Yeah.
Starks on your podcast. And that makes a difference because it makes it more enjoyable for you as a host. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
that's true. And like I find, it's cool now like that my platform's gotten bigger too. Like when because I tell people that, like I will never forget like I started when I was writing reviews, like I a lot of the I reviewed a few Kickstarters, and like people like pull quoted my reviews on their Kickstarter pages, and they would like send me the books when they came out and got printed. And like I kind of like followed these indie creators and their journeys, and like that's how a lot of Blake's Buzz began. And so I've said like yeah, like I've gotten way lucky, and like with the day job being comics now, and
Yeah.
and the guests and stuff that I get. But I will never forget that Kickstarter in the indie scene is what led to my popularity. But it's just at the same time, like it's every now and then it still happens. Like I'll
Mm.
accidentally schedule 3 or 4 live streams in a week, and dude, it kills me. Like it just like it's gonna sound so
Yeah.
lame, but you when you're like hyped up and on it for an hour and a half, or if it's like those 2 hour live streams, like I
Yeah.
have fun, but it's like when they're done, I'm like it's it's just like it's a different kind of exhaustion. It's like your body's not really tired,
Yeah.
but your mind is, and you've had to talk a lot too. And it's just, so it's you do that like 3 or 4 times a week, and by the weekend I'm just like a husk, and I'm like I need to like molt like a
Yes.
spider and grow again. Or
It's true. And it's like all these people that are going to listen to this episode are going to be like, these guys get to talk to some of the coolest people in the
yeah,
world. And it
like
sounds like they're
wow,
just bitching.
they're
Wow,
talking to
there's,
Brian Bendis and Tom King, and
yeah.
their life's super hard. Yeah, it is.
And we got to
Like,
read all these comics to get
I
ready for it.
know,
Like, it's such a
sometimes
tough
for
life.
free. Like
Yeah.
I don't know, some way before they come out. Sometimes I don't
The
know.
problem, for the benefit a lot of these publishers have, like obviously we get a lot of advanced copies of things to do reviews and for
Mm,
guests and things like that. Is in all likelihood, if I have a guest on my podcast, I'm buying the comic. So no matter what,
yeah,
I'm just getting it before everybody else is digitally. That's
that's
what it is.
true.
I'm getting it
Yeah,
digitally before, and then I'm going on my LCS and picking up the comic when it comes out on release day. But
yeah.
it's
Inspire me in an interview and
yeah,
watch me sink money on your
yeah,
bibliography. Like that
exactly.
has happened so many, because I'm like, oh my God, I want to read, or I'll even before, sometimes I've bought stuff to grease the wheel
Yeah,
to, but especially early on. Now I have a name that some people know,
yeah,
right? And so like, but like early on, I would sometimes buy like, like get a in stock trade shipment or something of like
yeah.
a bunch of a writer's work, and like tag him and be like, oh, they'd be like, oh, thanks so much. I'd be like, oh, I interview people, and they'd be like, this guy just spent $100 on my books. I guess I'll say
I
yes.
guess I'll do something. Yeah,
But I used to do that, but no, I would like even now, like sometimes I'll get into someone, and I'll have access to the PDFs,
yeah.
and then but then I'm like, oh, there's an omnibus or there's a cool hardcover, like oh, and then I buy those, and then yeah, and then it just and it goes, it spirals. It just is like, I'll get into these people, and I want to support them when I can, and whether it's a Kickstarter or a new hardcover release, yeah, like I try, I do, and then or like I did an interview recently, and the person, like, people kept talking to me about the Justice League International, and I finally bought those 2 omnibuses,
Mhm.
and now there's the third one comes out next month, and I'm like, oh yeah, and
No,
of
no,
course I have to get it, like,
yes.
and it's really good though. I started reading it, and like
Yeah.
people were not lying, but so like that happens too sometimes, where like you're talking to someone you really respect, and like you're already like, oh, I'm buying like all their books, and then they're
Yeah.
like, oh, but like I read this series, and it changed me, and it made me the writer I am today, and you're like, well, I gotta
I gotta
read
buy
that
that.
now too, and then sometimes those aren't as easy to, sometimes you're dollar bin hunting or whatever, like when I was trying to get the Rachel Pollack Doom Patrol books,
Yeah.
I bought all the singles, and then DC was like, "Here's a new omnibus," and I was like, "Oh, cool, thanks for that." But I'm glad it's out there regardless. But it's you just that's the blessing and the curse of being a comic fan, doing what we do, being pressed too, but like being in the scene, just like
Yes.
being in this, it's just every day a continuous mass of referrals, new books, new stuff. Uh, it's impossible to keep up with. It's impossible to read it all, and maybe someone out there can buy it all. I sure can't, right? But
No, I know that's the thing is like I can't afford all of it. Like one of the first earlier like guests that I was really excited for was I'm a huge Jonathan Hedrick fan,
nice.
and The Recount is one of my favorite books of recent years.
Yeah.
And I like was like buying all the variants. Like his store would go on, like I'd buy like, oh, I have a sale, it's like 25% off. I'd buy like way more than I need to because I'm just like I want more of this. And so Jonathan's made a bunch of money off of me as a fan and things like that too. But like I feel like I don't know. I rep a lot of people, and I'm sitting there like a street team on Wednesdays at LCS. I'm going there to pick up my books and off my pull list, and I'm like, oh, that book you got to read of someone that no one's ever heard of because it's their
Yeah.
first comic, but they've been on the podcast, and I'm like, they're such a great person. They're like, what is this book? And I'm just like, you gotta buy. So I mean, it works for them in multiple ways. They get people listening to the show, but they also get me, repping them on the streets too. But
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, we're comic book fans, and that's the beginning part. Right? I mean, that's the very early part of this is that we enjoy comics as a whole, and that's why we want to talk comics. I mean,
Mhm.
this is not again, no one's forcing us to do this. We're not making a ton of money off of this. If
Mhm.
anything, Blake's Buzz as a whole and our Capes and Tights as a whole loses money, if
Yeah,
anything.
it
But
definitely costs more money usually. Yeah.
then it's weird. But
We
like
both
obviously,
sound really good, which is not cheap. I'll let you all know, right? The audio quality that I'm hearing in my headphones is expensive. It's all I know right now.
it's definitely expensive, and again, it's time, it's energy, it's all that stuff. So like, it's
Yeah,
not, but because of what we get to do and who we get to talk to, and the things in the
it's worth
content we
it.
get to read,
Yeah.
I hate to say content, the books we get to read, is amazing. It's so worth it. And so you've been reading comics. I mean, since childhood, is this what it is? I mean, have you been into comics your
Yeah,
entire
man.
life, or is this?
I remember I was talking about this the other day. I remember getting the for Christmas, my Aunt Sue one year got me a short box. It was this amazing Spider-Man decorated short box that came with, I don't remember the comics it came with. It came with like a random Marvel sampler and then basically a form that you mailed in, right? Self-addressed stamped envelope, like send it in with a check or cash, right? And you could subscribe to whatever series for a year. And I ended up subscribing to Amazing Spider-Man for a year. And they would come like folded up, dude, like in like in manila envelopes. Like Gemini mailers weren't a thing, folks, right? Like and they did not care how these comics got to you. They just cared that it got to you. And I didn't either. Like I
No.
didn't care that it was folded. I wasn't bagging and boarding this stuff. It came and I read it and I would throw it in my backpack and my friends would read it at school and stuff. And but yeah, so like grade school was when the comics started. My dad took me to my first comic book shop. Him and my mom used to fight a lot, and he would when they would fight, he would be like we'd go for like we'd go out like to get away from her, and he was totally playing favorites too. But I mean,
Yes.
they're still together, and we have a strong family, and like
Yeah.
we all like each other and shit now. But you know, it's anyways. Like I noticed that when I was later, I was like, Dad was kind of manipulating me as a child, like, but he
And
did.
it
He like
worked.
it did. But yeah, he took me to my first comic shop and college and stuff. I wanted to write short stories and poetry, and I quit. I quit reading comics for a while, got back into it, and that's when I got back into it with like adult money. And then I was like, and I started buying stuff, and I was like, then that's when the bug got real bad. And the pandemic was when I started collecting omnibuses, which got bad. And I have so like, anyways. But yeah, it's been they've been a part of my life for a very very long long time. And have made it better. Have like daily make it more stressful and aggravating. But have like overall like definitely made my life better. Have gotten me out of some situations. That like made me calm, like calming down and staying home and reading comics instead of going out and doing stupid shit, right? Like that was that they definitely helped it with that. And yeah, man, like even now, like this whole community, like this community has been there for me so many, like this community without like they've helped me buy gear. They when my dog got cancer, well, before we knew it was cancer, we thought like she had like spine nerve issues, and like people came together and donated and helped me get a wheelchair for my dog. And like, and then we like they gave us even more. We had like I had like dog ramp. We got like wheelchair dog ramps, like, and then found out that it was her legs quit working because she had this like giant fucking tumor. Sorry if I don't know if I said a bad word or not. I
You're
know I
good.
said a bad word. I don't know if I can.
Yeah,
But
you're good.
anyway, like they when my cousin my little cousin died, and it was he ended it himself, and like the insurance, like I don't know, some weird stuff happened with the insurance, and I shared a GoFundMe, and a lot of comic people donated to it. And so this community's like real, like been there for me, like just in support of my show, in support of me, in support of my family. Like it's insane how much like people have like just gone out of their way to support, and like people like that take pictures of people in Blake's Buzz shirts at like Comic Cons and stuff was like great. That's crazy, and so yeah, like I'm so lucky I get to do this, and I'm glad people watch my stuff, and I'm glad like I provide like time, like if watching my way too long interviews, that the algorithms are telling me that like your videos are too long, boy, and it's like leave me alone, algorithm. But the people that watch my stuff and keep coming back, and like I love it, and I miss like some weeks when it's slow, and even when I'm like, oh, I needed a break, but like by
Yeah,
the end of the week I'm like, I didn't have a show this week, like what? Ooh, I feel dirty, and it's starting to do the cons and stuff now, and like that's all I want to do is travel more and do more cons
yeah,
and meet more people, and it's magic, it's pure magic, it's worth all the stress. And yeah, man, anything I can do to give back to indie creators and give back to fans that just have been there for me and like to listen to me and stuff too. um I'm glad I'm glad I do whatever for you weirdos that you like listening to me. I guess that's all. I don't know. I'm just I'm really thanks.
yeah.
Long story short, that's
I feel like the music, the Oscars music is playing. You need to be
right.
on
Yeah,
stage
like
now. Like,
get off the stage, dude.
no, but it's true. But like people say comics let people down. Like it's true. Like there's a lot of
Yeah.
things in comics that do let us all down. Let's be
Mhm.
honest. But there's so much good in comics as
Yeah.
well as it's the one comics isn't consistent. Like obviously we've seen a lot of change over the years in
Hmm.
formats, prices, distribution stuff, all that stuff. But it's still constant because it's always there.
Yep.
Like the only moment that we really had a slight moment of like, oh shit, comics aren't there anymore was during that like diamond freeze during the
Hmm.
pandemic where it was like, are we going to get comics? But that doesn't mean you couldn't have gotten it digitally. There was back issues you could get. There's local.
Yep.
So it's always been there since I started collecting and reading comics. There's
Hmm.
hasn't been a time where it hasn't been there for me in a sense that, I wrote something when we switched from just solely a podcast to doing a podcast and a website that had more content on it written. I did a post about how it's like mentally amazing for me, comics. And that's like bagging and boarding. If I'm having a rough day and I just want to, honestly, I'm not even putting comics in bags and boards. If I'm just making bags and boards for future comic purchases, it's like I could watch TV and just do it. It gets my mind off of shit.
Yes.
Resorting comics. You go, okay, I want to go. I went from long boxes to short boxes, and I'm like putting those in order alphabetically, and then like Marvel over here, Indie over here. I've got
Hmm.
these bins behind me. These are like current runs that I'm collecting, and
I like
stuff.
that. I know I was gonna ask you about those, like the little bin setup. I'm digging it. Like
They're
it's
like made for
they made for shoes.
vegetables
Oh, vegetable.
for your fridge.
Interesting. Okay.
I bought them on the the happy place online,
Yeah.
the big smile place, Amazon. No, but they're not super cheap, and that's why I
Okay.
like bought them like during the pandemic, and like
Why they look cool
I
too,
had too
but
many beers like late at night. The world sucks right now. I want new comic stuff. But yeah, so like basically what I do here back here is like American Psycho, for an example, is right behind me. That is a current run going on right now over at Sumerian Massive
Mhm.
Publishing. And once it hits issue 5 or 6, whatever it is, once I complete it, then I'll put it in a short box. But that's why
Okay.
I'm not like pulling short boxes off all the time and trying to
Yeah.
like put things away. This is like current runs of stuff. Obviously, Undiscovered Country is getting close to an end. Saga's going to be there for a while. That's going to be there for a while. And then
Yeah.
there's like ones below it that are like, I'm a huge Michael Del Mundo fan, so there's a Del Mundo box. Big Scotty
Nice.
Young fan, so there's a Scotty Young box. And so like, yeah, it's a fun, it's a like cathartic thing that comics is. Like the community is amazing.
Hmm.
I get to go to the comic book store, my LCS. I sit there every once in a while. If I get out or work early, I'll sit there for an hour or so and just
Nice.
shoot the shit with people about random stuff. And I feel the same way. I feel like the community is. I've been lucky enough to have not as much shit go wrong in the past couple of years, number of years as Blake here has. But I feel like if I did, I would, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And so like there would be people there in a similar situation that you had if I needed it. And that's what's cool about this whole thing. It's like
Hmm.
every once in a while you look at like a view count or a stream count or something, and like, oh, I put a lot of energy and time into that
Yeah.
one. But it redeems itself because like a later episode goes, holy shit, why did people watch that episode or listen to that episode? I don't understand
Hmm.
what went on that week. Where all of a sudden I know where you spiked it like 50%, and you're like,
Yeah.
and sometimes it's the algorithm, sometimes it's I feel like it's this statistics of podcasting, both video and audio. I feel like the statistics are not the greatest.
Yeah, it's I don't even understand it. I just know, like, I know everybody tells me, they're like, don't look at the views, and it's like, yeah,
Yes.
okay, I'll just not look at the views. Like, okay, but like, I just learned how to edit video. I mean, I'm not a great video editor, right? But like, I'm way better now than I was even a couple months ago, right? So I'm like
Yeah.
always learning, always trying, and it's like I'm doing this for more views. I'm not doing everything for more views, but I'm doing.
Yes.
I mean, this can't. I mean, like I this camera, the
Yeah.
audio equipment and stuff. Like a lot. Some of that too was for going to cons and stuff. And I wanted to.
Yeah.
I didn't have to have 4K con footage. But it looks cool.
You need
It's
to. They make 4K porn now, dude. And you need to make
yeah,
4K
we
content.
need
It's like
4K. We need 4K interviews. It was funny though. So some people have told me that they hate bagging and boarding. And I've always thought the same thing. Like, especially, I'm not as big a Wednesday warrior anymore. Like,
yeah,
I like the hard covers. I'm
yeah,
out of space. And I subscribe to Marvel Unlimited and DC Ultra. And so like I do the yearly subscriptions on those. That's how I get my big two fixes.
yeah.
Anyway, but I when I used to be a big Wednesday warrior, I would like love it, and I would like bag and board. I'd put on a movie or some shows, and it was like therapeutic, and even I liked the ones with the sticky thing on it, so you can like reseal the resealable ones. And even
Yes.
when you peel it and it's like, and you like, and then it like doesn't come off your fingers and you have to kind of shake it off. And then you like do, even when I was doing like the 70th time that night, and
Yeah.
it was just like, I loved it. I had a buddy like watching me do it one time. We were watching a movie, and he was like, this is fascinating. And I was like, what, dude? I'm just bagging and boarding comics. And he was like, no, but you're like he was just like, it's like rhythmic. He's like, you're just in this zone. And I was like, oh, you're being weird, man. I got to bag and board my comics.
It's like picture David Attenborough like narrating you in the wild. We got Blake here in the
yeah,
wild right now. He's bagging and boarding. Oh, it's just stuck to his finger again.
yes. He shakes it violently.
No, my buddy wouldn't carry those comics. He doesn't carry those bags and boards because he hates that aspect of it. Like
oh,
he hates
really?
that. And I said, what you do is you get. So I buy some Midtown comics too. I actually just got a collection because Midtown did a 60% off signed comics
Okay.
sale, and so I was able to get like I got Devil's Cut, the Jamie McKelvey variant signed by Snyder and Tinian for
Oh,
$7. For
whoa.
like $3 less
Dang.
than the book cost itself, like on the shelf, signed by
Yeah,
those two creators. And
that's
Midtown
cool.
uses all those. So you have the sticker on the front. I have to peel the sticker off, then I'm putting it here. Then I stick the little thing to the sticker, or like get some masking tape out. Put there's ways to do it. But then like 6 weeks later, you'll be like walking around the floor, and there'll just be one of those
Yeah.
like peel off things on the floor. You're like, where the hell did that come
Yeah.
from? But there's something rhythmic to it. I wouldn't want to go to my local comic book shop and be like, hey, could I back and board a bunch of your comics for you? Because
For
like they're
free.
not mine. Like I don't
Yeah,
like
it
it.
have to be mine. Yeah.
But like I just there's something about that and something about doing it. And behind me, the ones that are on the wall
Mm,
are in top loads as well. And they're signed comics from guests of the podcast. So like
nice.
anybody is back there and it's like, what are we up to now? One, two, three, four. It's 5 rows high. And every once in a while I get a ladder out and I'm like, oh, let's reorganize this. Like that why? No one sees, first of all, no one sees like above a row and a half. So why does it matter? But it's like it's a thing that's like, I don't know. I just get lost in this world that like I'm not spending more money on it because it's just rotating it. It's not like I'm
Hmm.
actually spending more money. But B, it's just I don't know. It's like, oh, look at this cool one again. You like looking at it again. Like
Yeah.
maybe I want to make that front and center so someone does notice that this is kind of cool. And I don't know, just something about it. And it's above and beyond reading comics. I
Hmm.
think, like it's the same thing. I read a lot of novels now too, and the same thing. Like I'll just be like, oh, let me go see if I can move some novels around. And like it's above and beyond reading it because every once in a while you don't want to just read. I'm
Yeah.
done reading. I've read enough of the podcast. I just want to do something different. And that's what it is, bagging and boarding and reorganizing. And during the pandemic, it was big because you couldn't go anywhere. So it's like, let's just make sure this is more organized than before.
Yeah, that's what like right now I want to so I'm about to build a studio.
Mhm.
Like that I'm about to get like a but again it's finding time like we have like I've had people say that they can help and but it's just like finding the time to like basically like swap rooms and then get everything reset up.
Yeah.
And then it's not gonna have enough room for my books, but like it's gonna look a lot cooler and I'll be able to do like like I have a lot of statues in storage and
Yeah.
stuff. So I think I'm gonna go more statue cool stuff and framed art vibe than bookcases, I
Yeah.
think. But anyway, it's just, like it's like finding the time. But yeah, I've been kind of like planning and measuring and like and then it's like, man, like you could just start doing this instead of like planning it and like looking at stuff that you may buy later, or just like, I'm like, I just need to do it. But it's the same way. Because yeah, sometimes now now my free time is writing Geek Network articles.
Yes.
Because that's
Which
life
is
right now.
takes us so much time. It's so much time. I was like, the
uh,
second I switched over to doing just podcasts to doing article stuff too, I'm like, why did I do this to
yeah,
myself?
it's like, okay, well, like, wow, we're here to party, and then yeah, now we're about to start doing like you like YouTube channel shows for it. We're about to launch the Geek Network podcast syndicate. Like I think Joel, the my boss at Metal Ninja, I think he posted the new logo
What's
on
this? He did a
Facebook
little like
today.
new Facebook cover on his Facebook page
Yeah.
there over there. Yeah, I saw that. I was like, yeah, that's awesome. It's Geek Network's awesome because I've been following Geek Network for a little bit, not fully, with its previous ownership. Now that it's
Hmm.
over at Metal Ninja, it's a little different, and now you're involved with it too. Now you're editor in chief of the over there at Geek Network. It's just a lot more because it's a lot different style and a lot more. It's a lot easier because you can do it like 2 o'clock in the morning by yourself.
Yeah.
That's the difference. That's the benefit you could get out of it. Like
Yeah.
sometimes I'll be like on lunch break during my regular job, being like, let's crank an article out as I'm eating a slice of pizza.
Yeah.
And that I can do. That's fun
And
about it.
sometimes it happens at the perfect time when
Yes.
like a good press release comes in
Yes.
right at lunchtime and you get that out within 20 minutes and it's posted and then like that happened to me last week and like the creators
Was the
shared it and I was like yes! I was like,
what was
oh,
the
why
one? There
can't
was
this
one that came out. Was it? Well, it was the Boom one. It was the uh what was the Boom
the
release this week?
tiny there's
Oh, not the
they
tiny
did
one. The one before that. The one that
they,
the anthology they're doing.
oh, the
Uh,
horror, yeah, their
yes.
big horror anthology, yeah.
And I was like, that was the one where I was like, I went to my wife is home on maternity leave, and I'm working during the day, and she's like, hey, can we see her favorite stores, her favorite restaurants, like an hour from here? And so I took a half a day off, and we went to there, and ate there, and
Nice.
came back, and I clock out, and I'm like on the way home to pick up my wife to go there, and I get that email. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me right now? Like, at least I work in an office where, like, it need to take 15 minutes to quickly put this press release out. I can get it out there.
Yeah.
But I'm like, now I'm an hour away from there without my computer and all that stuff. And it's like, it always happens that way. Or you and I are talking right now, and like right afterwards, something gets announced that we could have talked about on the podcast. That's the other
Yeah.
one that I've always been like really annoyed with, like timing wise,
Yeah.
that happens. I think
Guests are notorious. So I'll be like, what do you got going on? Well, I can't say anything right now. And then like a week later,
yeah.
they'll be like it'd be like David proposed, like, oh yeah, I'm
Yeah.
working at Marvel now. I was like, really, David? You couldn't tell me that when we were on the
Well,
call? Like,
David Harper over Off Panel, he had Scotty Young on, and Scotty
yeah.
Young literally came on. The episode he was on was releasing on Monday, and on Tuesday, Scotty was announcing he was doing I Hate Fairyland again. And so
Oh
like he couldn't
wow.
say anything on the episode, but literally the day after he was putting the
Oh
announcement,
no.
I'm like, are you kidding me right now? You couldn't have given him like some sort of like exclusive and moved
Yeah.
the date up a little bit or something. I was like actually frustrated about that. I was like, I would hate that, but David's been doing it
they're
a long time too,
intense. Like
so
publishers are because like usually it's like AIPT or like sometimes like or maybe if it's like horror like Fangoria or
yeah,
somebody will get the exclusive
or
to drop
Deadline.
it. Yeah, and when they get when they give those exclusives to those big publications and like make those deals, like they'll be like, we'll set you and your book on fire if you spoil this
Yes,
for it. Like
yes,
they told like I had a client. Someone hired me to help promote like their big two book, or not
yeah,
their direct market book. I'm sorry, there wasn't big two, but it wasn't Kickstarter either. It was
yeah,
like out in the direct market, and he just wanted like some extra boost, a little bit extra help, and we had to be very careful because he was like when he sent me like the first, he was like, this isn't supposed to go out, like don't give this. And then like I'm setting him up for interviews, and the publisher is like saying like you can't send out the reader copy yet, and like he's like scheduled, we're like, dude, he's scheduled to talk to these people like
yeah,
this. And then finally they were like, okay, you can send it out. And we were like, but yeah, it was like it like came down to the wire of like it was just so. But anyway, yeah, they are so intense, and it is it's funny. It's never like it's never malicious or
yeah.
like manipulative, but it is funny. Like sometimes they'll be like, oh yeah, I can't talk about it, and then like a week later, like this huge press release comes out, and you're like, oh, like so close, like
And you always say it too when you like sign off the end of the episode. Hey, we'd love to have you come back on again, and anything new
mm-hmm.
that comes out, just let me know about. And you're like hoping that they're like, okay, Blake, we're gonna send you that exclusive. We're gonna make
Yeah,
you, you're the one that's
yeah,
gonna get this now. Like here we go. But yeah, it's funny, and it's funny what they hold on to in that sense too. When I talked to David Boer about Ghostbusters Back in Town,
yeah.
two things on that. I had to wait to get the advanced copy too because of the fact that it was like movie related and all that stuff. Every
Mm,
single one of my questions, it had to be more of a question and answer. I've made it flow a little better than just a simple like, so what happened to this? Da, da, da.
mm-hmm.
But I had to send it to Sony. Sony had to approve it because Sony owns the rights to
Whoa,
Ghostbusters and yada 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 and all that stuff. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And the same thing. I want to say last year I did a Star Wars week, and the same thing with Lucasfilm. It was just like they had to go through Lucasfilm to actually like make sure that we wouldn't talk about something. And I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna get David on to talk about Ghostbusters and shit all over Ghostbusters. What do you think about it? It's like, is that how you think it's gonna go? Is that what we
yeah.
were trying to prepare
I
me
never
not to
want to
do?
work again. That sounds great. Like let's ruin all the great
Okay,
opportunities we're
let's
given.
make sure that he doesn't shit all over Ghostbusters from 2016 and Ghostbusters 2, and then
Right?
we'll be
Yeah.
good.
I actually side note, I love David. We actually we worked on one of his books at Metal Ninja that
Yeah.
is gonna the horror one shot. I think or wait, no, I may not be able to talk about that yet. I'm just kidding. It's gonna come out in the direct market. I'm just oops.
We'll bleep that out.
There you go. You want an
See, we
exclusive?
edit.
There's
No,
an
so it's funny.
unofficial.
We do edit. So I edit some. Edit most of the time. Like I edit quality, obviously
Yeah.
things like that. But a lot of times it's free flowing conversation. And I had Ben Bishop. Ben Bishop is a buddy of mine, and Ben was on to talk like back in the day, like early Last Ronin, right? So like we did not
Oh
know
yeah.
who the Last Ronin was. And in an episode, he was rolling along, and I did it like at 9 o'clock at night or something like that. So we were both cranking beers, and like, and he slipped and said a turtle name. Okay, so like he
Oh
said it like in his
no.
conversation, he slipped it as like, and at the end of the episode, I didn't say anything at the moment. Like I wasn't like, hey, don't say that. Did it, what? And then at the end of the episode, I stopped and I said, hey, don't confirm or deny or whatever. But there was a turtle's name you had mentioned early on in a conversation about who the last Ronin was and so on and so forth. Are you? I'm gonna bleep it just because like I don't want to. I want to make sure that
Yeah.
it's all good. Come to find out, it wasn't even the freaking turtle that was the last Ronin. That pissed me off. It was like it's just the way he said it and the way the context of what he was saying
Yeah.
it. It was like he almost slipped and said it, and so I was like, oh, I'll go back and bleep that. So like it's one of those things that I'm like, if we have to go through and like go, and it was and a big blam.
Yeah. I didn't realize it in my Planet Comic Con. I did a Mark Waid interview, and I didn't realize it when he was. It's sometimes it's hard to hear those
Yeah,
interviews. Like they sounded great like in the audio because the mics did a good job, but like sometimes when they're asking questions, like there was several times where like people would walk by talking or like loud
yeah,
noises, and I was and I you only get a few minutes with these people anyway. So I don't want to be like, what? Can you repeat everything you just said again? And I would just be like, oh, yeah. And I would catch most things, but like just some stuff you would miss. And I totally, Mark Wade said absolute DC. He said it in March. And I was just like, oh, cool. Thanks, Mark. And I was like, you idiot. Why didn't you say, what is absolute DC, Mark Wade? And then, like, I didn't even catch it, of course. And then until editing it and posting it was like a week last week or 2 weeks ago or whatever is when I posted it. And then and they still haven't said anything other than that Bleeding Cool article and Snyder being like, yeah, I'm doing something like this. That's still like, I don't know. I don't understand that, but yeah. I had Mark. I almost had a gnarly. I bet you Mark Wade was not supposed to say that in that interview. Probably.
So we live in a world of comics. We live in the world of first appearances, and someone's like, "Well, they first announced it on AIPT." You're like, "No, no, it was an interview at Planet Comic Con. Go back and look.
It was March 8th at Planet Comic Con in Kansas
If you
City,
want me to sign the first appearance, I will sign the first appearance of Absolute DC."
It's me and Mark Wade. But yeah, I noticed. I was like, "Oh my god!" I was like, because yeah, and then like I wouldn't have even if I would have heard him properly, I probably would have. I would hope I would have been like, "What's Absolute DC, Mark?" Or been like, "Is that a new book coming out?" Or like, because that's when they were talking about that. That's what when I hear DC Absolute, I think of the Absolute editions, the slipcase. I love those things, man. But yeah, I'm excited for that. I've always loved like Marvel's Ultimate Universe. I like Elseworld stuff. I like DC Black Label's been fun, even though it's more DC Batman label than DC Black Label, I think. But hey, the Batman stories dropping on it are cool though. So like whatever, I'm not gonna be like quit making cool Batman stories, DC.
If anybody listens to this episode, this podcast too. No, I'm not a huge DC fan. Like I know what's going on in DC and I understand what's going on. I know characters and so on and so forth. I just don't regularly read DC. And I don't usually buy
it. It's fine. No, I'm just
but I don't buy like a lot of like physical copies of DC either. And so I laughed when I first bought Nice House on the Lake for my LCS. I'm like, hey, I bought a DC book. He's like, screw you. You didn't buy a DC book. You bought a DC Black Label, which confuses me in that sense of like why I understand Black Label, but it almost makes more sense if Black Label was only like the Nice House and Lake style stuff, where it was like non-DC, like even superheroes at all. And then a different thing was like offshoot Batman stuff and darker Batman stuff. So like it was confusing to me. Like there's different formats. Like some of them are in the Black Label format, and some of them are in the regular issue format. So like that whole thing was confusing in the first place. But like I don't think that Marvel understands what the hell's going on right now either. But I'm so glad that the Ultimate Universe in Marvel is back. And that was one of those things.
I need to get back to that, because that dude, I remember. I'll never forget like reading that Brian Bendis Ultimate Spider-Man run, and I went back to that, right? So like I was really interested in Miles and got into Miles, and then went back and did the whole the Ultimate Peter Parker saga, and then just had every organ ripped out of me and did the death of Ultimate Spider-Man, right? When May slaps Cap and is like, "Oh, you did this. Shame on you." Oh,
you
man,
feel it.
Dude.
You feel the slap. You're like, Jesus.
I ugly cried, dude. I cried. I cried. I also cried hard when I reread Death of Superman a couple years ago. But anyway, but yeah, I wept for Ultimate Peter Parker, man, and I wept. Spoiler alert: Ultimate Peter Parker dies. And spoiler alert: Miles's mom dies for a second. But like when Miles's mom died, like that whole like Ultimate Venom run, dude. That stuff was amazing. I didn't hate Ultimatum. Like I'm one of those. Everybody's like Ultimatum is garbage, and I was like, it had some really crazy deaths that like I know are like kind of gross and gnarly and weird and like why, but they look kind of cool on the page. Anyway, but I've always loved the Ultimate Universe. Krakoa started in the Ultimate Universe. The Ultimate Comics X-Men. They had that weird like lump in the like that lump land in the desert that they all lived on, right? And all that stuff. All that, so all those Ultimate Comics books I loved. And then going back, then like that Ultimate Spider. So bringing that back, having Hickman do it too, like take his genius wherever he can, and let him move around. Like I remember I was even bummed when he left X-Men.
Yeah.
But you know what? I would rather him leave X-Men and leave it how he wants it left. Be like, I did what I want, and now I want to go over here and I want to play in this. I want to play in this sandbox now. Let him do that. Then like get burnt out and not do anything heroes for 5, 6 years or whatever it was. Like, like
Yeah.
I think their editorial teams are figuring that out too. Like because it's also crazy because you would be like, what like duh moment is that too? Like, oh yeah, let Hickman do what he wants. Like your one job as a comic book editor is like, yeah, like let him cook, like
Yes.
let the guy cook. So yeah, anyway, I need to catch up with that, but I'm very excited. And I think they just came out with like a new hardcover, like they're like putting out some, it's like a not quite an omnibus to getting people ready for the
Mm.
new stuff they're doing, and the new announcements, new X-Men coming. I tried to get my boss to pay for like an extended Marvel pull list for like as a Geek Network expense. He didn't go for it, but I was like, we could be on the ground, like we got to be on the ground floor of this new X-Men. Like Gail Simone's writing X-Men. Come on, like
Yeah.
I just feel like that's gonna be nuts. And then with
Yeah.
all like the Ultimate Universe stuff going on, I've had a couple interviews with people where like afterwards they've been like, I'm pretty sure I'm writing a mini series for it later, but I'm not 100%. And it's like, so like there's so many. They're going to oversaturate us with X books just like they did last
Yep.
time. So fans of that, you're going to be hungry and full. Not fans of that, you're going to have to trade weight or pick and choose. But I mean, like they're gonna come back. It's going to be a land of mini series again. It feels like, but I'm excited. I fell behind with the Krakoan era, and
Mhm.
I don't know, like this feels like a cool hopping on point, and like with the being the editor in chief of a
Yeah.
geek centric website, like these are things I have to. I'm like a hungry content machine now. I'm like a anteater
Ah.
going around just snorting ants out of the ground, just like looking
Yes.
for stories, man. Just like
But Marvel seemed like they had for a number of years there. We just like we weren't. I wasn't excited about a lot of stuff. Like it wasn't
mm-hmm.
like I honestly don't feel like I've been like, super excited since they killed off the Ultimate Universe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like at that, like, and there was like a 10-year march where it was like there was a few things where I was like, okay, I can grab onto that. I can do that.
Mm-hmm.
And with this Ultimate thing, when they started, teasing this, I was like, I can jump onto this. I
Yeah.
can definitely do this. And I'm glad they did because, like I said, I've been a Marvel fan since, through and through. And I've always been a huge Marvel fan. And they were disappointing me. My pull list went from like, like eight Marvel comics, two indies to like two Marvel, eight indies
Mm.
overnight because of just like, I was like, okay, really?
Yeah.
That too? Why are you focusing on that title? Like, I can't believe it. And so, like, it's just nice to see that coming through. And honestly, I feel like people are jumping on it. Some of the values, if you're looking for speculation stuff, or like the Ultimate books, like Ultimate Spider-Man #1, Ultimate
Yeah,
Black Panther,
that was hard to get,
skyrocketed.
right? Yeah. You had to
And
pay
so, like,
for
this
it.
is just cool. It pulls some attention to it and stuff like that too. But big two aside, dude, like I think now, I think the indie world is the way to go. Like I think that
Mm-hmm.
there's more amazing, wonderful, innovative, and unique stories coming out of the indie side of things now than ever. And I think there's always been good indie books. Let's be
Oh yeah.
honest. Like some of the best books in history have been independent books.
And your favorite
And
writers at the big two are probably gonna write like I mean look at right now. Tom King is doing two or three indie books,
yep,
right? Or three indie books with Love Everlasting still going,
yep,
right? So like these guys, these guys take the contract, and because I mean to make money in like to really make money, you have to be doing like what is it? I think like six or more almost books a month, right? Not everybody can hang, not everybody can sustain it. And there's other ways to make money and supplement it, but like that's why like a lot of times when you're like, oh wow, like Tom King, Brian Bendis, these guys had all these books come out. This look at like Jeff Johns and
yep.
Ghost Machine, and he had three giant releases come out at the same day. And so you know they have to have all these like ovens or all these ovens going basically, right? Like and they all have like a pizza in them. I don't know what's in the oven. They're making food. There's lots of ovens in comic
Hey,
book series,
this is
right?
why, like, this is why Tom King's writing these books, not you.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. But
This is
yeah, it's
metaphor would have been better. No, no, I understand what you're saying. They have to have, a lot of things going on. They have to have
mhm.
plates turning. They have to have these things going on because if they don't, well, I mentioned when I signed off with Ethan Sachs the other day, like, hey, what you got going on? And if the creator doesn't say, I've got something I can't talk about, that means you should
They're
worry.
dead. They're dead. They're dead in the
you
water.
you need to have something you
Yeah.
can't talk about.
Like, get them help. Get them help right now.
Someone
You're
send
never
them
gonna
work
talk to
because
that person again. Like
it's just like one of those things that you have to have something that you can't
yeah.
talk about because there's something that is you're in the works, some script you're saying,
Mhm.
someone who's signed on to do something, but you haven't actually got the issues going or whatever it may be. You have to have this going because if not, I just don't know where. I also forgot, like as I was like reading, I read some of the Ghost Machine stuff, but I had no idea, honestly, for some reason I was blanking on it that Jeff was actually writing all those books.
Mhm.
I just assumed that he was like, okay, let's get like the architect going, and then I'll have a couple other people. Like Todd's got his new Spawn universe
Yeah.
thing going on, but he's not writing all the books, and so
Yeah.
it's like maybe that's what's going on. But I'm like seeing Jeff Johns. I'm like, Jesus, man,
Yeah. The
and they're
first
all
round were all
stellar.
him. Yeah, they're all
That's the other
good.
thing is like there's like certain people who can have 27 books out a month and they're all like eh. But then
Yeah.
there's people out there who have like 12 or 6 6 or 7 books out a month and they're all amazing. I'm like, you guys suck. Give some of
I know, right?
the
Like
talent over here,
it's
please.
not fair. It's not and then like those like some people that like can like draw and letter and write like when they like just start
Yeah.
kind of doing everything and then they're like I hired a colorist because I was tired. It was like, yeah,
Yeah. Well,
go take a nap, pal. You
that's
deserve it.
Kyle Starks, we mentioned earlier.
Yeah,
It's Scotty Young, in my opinion. It's
yeah.
some of these people who are like, you guys are stellar artists. Yeah, I'm gonna take a time off from art drawing. I'm just gonna write stories,
Hmm.
which are amazing. I'm like, you were shut up.
Yeah, Scotty's a great
Sorry, you have
writer.
too much talent over there.
Right? Yeah. I bought my dad the Scotty Young. He drew Andy Reid like with the frozen mustache during the playoffs. And he sold him his prints and donated to like a local charity.
Yeah.
And I bought my dad one. And then we got him I thought he drew Jason, but he didn't release a print for that. But Funko is released the Jason Funko, and my sister and I like my dad has like this crazy Chiefs collection, and so like anyway, I ended up getting him that, and he's got like the Funko coming, and but yeah,
So
he's
I
like
get the
what like comics and Chiefs can combine. I'm like, yeah, man, it's crazy.
I got the Scotty like the too much
Oh,
Scotty
cool.
like I
That's
got
awesome.
Gert there. We got my son's name is Nova, so I got Nova. But yeah, so
Sick.
and my LCS, the LCS owner, the company, the place I go, Galactic Comics, he's also a big Scotty Young fan, so he's got a sleeve of Scotty
Nice.
Young tattoos too. But yeah, that was so. I was going to ask you actually. It's kind of funny. It's a good segue, right? This is perfect. We plan these things, right? Like your
Yeah.
podcast, we're streaming, we talk about comics, we know exactly what we're doing. We're perfect at these things. No, but like obviously you're a fan of comics too. You're a professional, but you're also a fan of comics too. So you
Mm.
must have some guests that you're like, oh shit, I can't believe I got this guest, or just guests you were just extremely excited to talk to over the past number of years. I will say started off. Scotty was on. Scotty was amazing. I love Scotty. I cannot
Mhm.
believe at that moment like I was able to talk to one of my favorite artists of all time. Obviously, Brian Michael Bendis is another one for me. I got David Dastmalchian
Yeah.
to talk the Headless Horseman annual with Leah Kilpatrick.
I really liked his new movie, even though
Dude, it was
I know you're not supposed to like it because and they used AI in the dumbest way.
yeah,
Well, I don't even know why they did it.
yeah.
They could have paid me. I would have done that. I would have made that shit in Canva for $20.
But I mean, outside of that, yes, it was amazing.
I liked it. Other than that, like a
Yeah,
real time possession narrative
yes,
live. Gimme. It was all anyway.
it
Yeah,
was amazing. But yeah,
it was
so like
cool.
those people, like some of the people, like I'm like, oh my god, this is amazing. I can't believe this. And I
Yeah,
think, like honestly, a lot like I mentioned Kyle. Kyle I got on my own, but David, Brian, other people, Dark Horse got those people for me.
yeah.
I just talked to Dark Horse PR and they were able to help cook me up. So like, yeah, I've had some guests that I've absolutely loved having on, and I'm like, I cannot believe I've talked to these people. You must have those too. Like I'm
Oh yeah.
guessing that you have some.
I
You name a
I
few if you want, but
I so early on, Brian Edward Hill gave me a shot, like early Blake's Buzz time, and I reached out to AWA that Chariot book.
Yep.
And I really liked it. And so I sent them a message and I was like, hey, I'd love to get him on my show. And they were like, oh, yeah, send us like how many people watch your show a month and where's it all? And I was like, oh, they're not going to put him on
Yeah.
my show now. And because I was like brand new, I was like, oh, 5 people watch my show. Like nobody was watching my show. Who the hell is this guy?
My parents.
Yeah. I was like, oh, my grandma and grandpa love it. No, they're dead. I'm just kidding. That's it. And
I
they
have
still watch it. That's
yeah.
loyalty. No,
I have 10 viewers. None of them are going to buy the comic, so don't worry
right.
about
Yeah.
that.
Right. But I was like, oh yeah, this conversation isn't going to go where I want it to go, and so I just took a shot and messaged like Brian on Twitter, and I was like, hey man, and he was like, oh, I'd love to, yeah, let's talk, and then like, and we like he like stays in touch. Like when my dog died, he messaged me to make sure I was okay, and I was like, are you serious? I was like, aren't you busy like writing fucking Batman? Like what are you,
Yes.
you
What are
know,
you
like
doing?
you're writing Blade right now. Don't care
Yeah.
about me. No, but like so that like early on that was insane, and it was just like it went from like Kickstarter people to Brian Edward Hill who wrote Batman, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh my god, and I remember being like super nervous. I got to but I was on the press circuit for Bendis and Malieve too. That was exceptional. It hasn't aired yet, but I got an hour and a half with Tom King. We did it was late, like it was like a 10 o'clock interview, and then like, dude, we talked about our dads and like we talked about I got him to talk. I didn't go crazy on the CIA stuff because I know it's like you probably can't talk about it a lot
Yeah.
anyway, but I asked him a couple like really good questions and he was like, holy shit, dude. Like he was like, oh my, and so I'm really excited to air that.
Oh no, I'm pumped. Yeah.
That was probably the biggest like he's like my one of my favorite writers. The other one I had that great interview that I lost that I mentioned earlier was I mean it was with Joe Casey and,
Yeah.
and like sex is one of my favorite books ever and like and he was like it's always on my mind and we're gonna finish it and I was like oh yeah cool and then, anyway that was a great interview and no one's ever going to hear it but it was awesome and then yeah, let's see. Yeah, like Tom King was probably
Yeah.
the big
Yeah.
recent one. David Mack was awesome. Like
Oh yeah.
David, and
Yeah.
he was like just telling awesome stories. Just super cool. I got to like at the con, Jason Aaron, like meeting him in person, and then like a lot of those guys they don't like know me, but they like know me enough. And so I was like, I can, when I was walking around the con, like, I was like, the guys were like talking to me and like, it was like weird. I was like hanging out with like cool people and I was like, this is weird. Right. So like, that was, like Pat Gleason, like I would when it was like I would like go hang out by his booth when it was slow or like just I was like crazy. I also like bought an omnibus from him, so like
You should
but
talk to
he
me.
still
No, I'm
he
kidding.
still like doesn't just because you buy stuff from someone doesn't mean like they have to. But he was CB Cebulski was there
Yeah.
and he was like unannounced and so like everybody was talking and he was like meeting with people and like all these comic pros were asked, they're like, Blake, why is CB here? Have you heard anything? And I was like, who do you guys think I am? I'm just like, I'm like just did someone to like local comic book legend Blake Morgan is at Planet
Yes.
Comic Con, but like Pat was talking to me and he was like, yeah, I was like, I don't know, man. I heard he's made some meetings with people, and Pat was like, well, I'm not exclusive to DC anymore. And I was like, Pat, are you trying to give me an exclusive or something? And he was like, you keep me in the loop, I'll keep you in the loop. And I was like, all right, dude, let's go. But yeah, that's that I don't know if like anybody got any big Marvel. I mean, I know Jason Aaron talked to him for a little while because
Yeah.
I saw them chatting and saw like I didn't like hear what they were saying or anything, but I also know like Jason is like more and more Marvel books are being
Yeah.
announced, which I didn't necessarily see coming with the Ninja Turtle announcement, and then he's at
Yeah.
DC. Like he just got his feet in the door at DC, and he's on Action Comics and writing a Batman book with Doug Mankey. Like, okay, like I feel like that's like a welcome party for like that's DC saying like come with us, stay. Maybe that too. Maybe that's why like Marvel was like, no, come back. Like, so they're just tugging on him, and Jason's just like, yeah, okay, whatever. But yeah, so it was cool. Like I was just like having these like crazy conversations with people because I was just like around at the right time and everybody was whispering. So yeah, it's you know, in real life and online and you know, people starting to know, you know, people starting to know who I am is crazy.
Yes.
Creators watching my live stream sometimes and stuff. Like I said, I'm really really lucky. Jeff Lemire, I'm coming for you, dude. You're gonna be on my show one day, I swear. He's like he's one that Chip. I'd love to get Chip on,
Yep.
and these guys, you know, these guys aren't like on social media normally, and they some of them have like moved to Substack. Scott Snyder, I'd love to get Snyder. He follows me. I'll tell a Scott Snyder story. It was not bad. He like he DM'd me one time when Best Jacket, when the big Comixology Best Jacket news came,
Yep.
like before Comixology Press sent stuff out. Scott DM'd me and he was like, hey man, here's the review copies, here's the dates, like, you know, like if you want to get stuff ready, just don't say anything, don't share them, and wait till this date to post. And I was like, oh cool dude, thanks so much, yeah, I'm so excited, you want to do an interview? And then he just skittered away. And I was like, so he follows me, and I've asked him a couple times for interview, and he just like he never replied. So like I feel like one day Gail Simone's another one. Rob Liefeld was mean to me online a long time ago, and Gail Simone followed me out of pity, and like I got like all
That's
this
amazing.
like this before like no show. I
Yeah.
was like just talking about comics on Twitter, and yeah, like I didn't even like I didn't even talk about how he drew. I didn't like I said that I was just like, man, it's just you all work in comics. I was like, you should just be respectful. I was like, you don't have to like the stuff that your coworkers are making, but you
Yes.
shouldn't be out there being like everything Marvel's making is trash. Like, you
Trash.
know,
Yeah.
and like anyways, and but that he got mad at me, and I've been a dick to people online, right? And I could have been a dick to Rob Life, but I was for real like just be nice to people, Rob. And he was like,
Yeah.
F this guy, I'm done with him. And then like he like tried to send his army after me. And then Gail Simone followed me, and she was like, you're a good kid, Blake. And I was like, oh my God, is this real? And then, like,
Just send
anyway,
Rob Liefeld a bunch of feet pictures, people. Just do
right.
it.
Yeah, just
That's
like
all you need to do.
but
That's
or
all you need
also
to do.
like Rob, if you wanted to do an interview, I
Yeah.
would love to have you on the show.
Well, it's funny. It's like, so
Share
I've
that
been,
out to your 100,000 followers, tell them to tune in live. It'd be great.
so
Like,
one of my early loves was Spawn, like the Spawn comic books. I've
yeah,
always
yeah.
loved Todd McFarlane's artwork and so on and so forth. And I've always said I don't like his writing. Like
Mm,
I'll say it out here again. However, if Todd, if you want to come on the podcast, you're more than welcome
yeah.
to come on the podcast. But your artwork. We mentioned the Kyle Starks, the Scotty Youngs, where I feel like their artwork and their writing are on
Mm-hmm.
the same level, in my opinion. And so there's other artists out there and writers and comic cartoonists out there that I'm missing. But like some people have the same level, and I just feel like
Mm.
Todd's level of writing is just so much further below his ability to draw a
Which is
character.
fine. He's a great artist.
Yes.
His style isn't for everybody, but neither is like Bill Sinkovich's, right?
Yes,
And
exactly.
I do love Bill's art.
Well,
I'm
I'm a
not trying to say
Scotty
I
fan.
don't.
You think people love the Scotty
Yeah,
baby
like
variants that much? Like, there's people who absolutely despise those things.
yeah,
And so, like, I understand where people are coming from, but like, yeah. So Todd, if every once wants to come on, Todd could always come on the podcast.
yeah.
But you've had a couple of my like I don't know dreamish people on there. Dana Warren Johnson, I'd love to talk about Daniel.
That was cool.
Joshua Williamson, one of my favorite comic books of
That
all
was
time
cool.
is Nailbiter. Like
Nail
literally, I've had Mike Henderson on. Mike was awesome talking about
Oh,
it, but I'd
cool.
love to talk to Joshua. And my white whale is Michael Del Mundo because he's one
Oh,
of my favorite artists of all time. And I had him booked for an episode. Like I had the date in the calendar, he had the link, he had the email, everything was all set to go. But it was right around like big con season, and so
yeah.
the person that was helping me connect with him, his like helper, and it's like basically the guy who was running his online store was helping him. I don't
Yeah.
know if it's his assistant or whatever. So can we move it to the fall? And then we moved it to the fall, and then that canceled, and so on and so forth. And because it got canceled 2 or 3 times, I've just basically left it alone because I'm like, okay, obviously this person isn't
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to bug you too much. Like I don't want to be too
Yeah, I
much of a
never know
pester.
like what's the acceptable amount to follow up. I stress
Yeah.
over that all the time. Someone
So
told
that's
me
my
be
white whale.
annoying.
That's my person who's like, one of these days I'm gonna email out of the blue. I'm gonna have to cancel another person to
Yeah.
get this person in because I'm not missing this. I'm
I
like,
got not it's not that but like so I met 2 years ago at my first Planet Comic Con. I met Fred Van Lente at well, I
okay,
was talking to Cullen Bunn, and Cullen was talking to this guy, and I was like Fred, and I was like holy crap, I was like, and we hit it off. I was like, oh yeah, and Cullen was like, he has a cool show, you should be on it. And anyway, Fred emailed me, and he was like, yeah, let's set up a deal. And I thought I sent this email, and it like went to drafts, and I noticed it like a year later. I was like, what's this draft to Fred Van Lente? And I was like, oh, oh wow, this guy hates me. I never responded to this email, and it's been like a year. And then I finally, someone told, they're like, Blake, just respond, like he doesn't hate you, you're being weird. And so I was like, hey man, I was like, I know this is like over a year late, but found this in my drafts, noticed I never responded. Like, I still would love to have you on. And he was like, yeah, cool. And then the other day, one of the Bad Idea guys, Adam Freeman,
yeah,
he was on the show a while back, and he was like, hey, I got some guys that have a book going, like, did you have them on your show? And I was like, yeah, sure, man, like whatever. And they like sent me some. He was like, "All right, I'll introduce you to email." And it's oddly enough, is one of them is Fred Van. And I was like, "Fred," I was like, "We met." I was like, "Oh, you're finally gonna come on my show? Nice." Like weird. But yeah. But anyways, beating going my long-winded always stories, but always send the email. This is what I was told. Is like, don't get in your head about it. Always send the emails, and as press, like someone told me it's our job to be annoying,
yes,
in a sense, be respectful, but and I'm with you though, dude. Like I really get in my head about it, especially if it's like 3 times, or like I send 2 emails and they're not getting responded to, and I'm like, okay, he's not gonna respond. But then I've also heard like some people that get these bigger names is because they just
yeah,
every
yeah.
week, every other week, reminding, and then finally it happens. So, but yeah, I have gotten lucky, and the bummer, and I hope I get other shots, is like with Daniel and Joshua and stuff, like those were like big press circuit emails, so they were
Yeah.
like, or press circuit interviews, so like I got into their like scheduled daily stacks of
Yeah.
press, and so it was like at like the 28-minute mark, they're like, all right, one more question, then we got to, and it was just like we were, you could tell like, oh, like we could have talked about a lot more stuff. Daniel, like I got like swept up, and then finally at the end, I was like, oh yeah, Transformers. Like, you're writing that, right? That's what this
And drawing.
interview was supposed to be about. But so anyway, but yeah, it's
That's
cool,
what I
like
got.
getting those
That's Kevin Eastman.
opportunities. Yeah,
I
yeah.
had Kevin Eastman that way. It was like a 15-minute interview for Kevin Eastman. And it was like, there's like, you have 15 minutes on the dot. And I wanted to upstate, like, I wanted to be like, Kevin, I'm giving you 14. You know, I'm like, I'm gonna get press hang up at
Yeah,
14 minutes. No, it was one of those
I'm
things. It was
done with
like,
you, sir. Like,
and I live in Maine, man. I'm like, you're from Maine. You're supposed to give me more credit here. Like, what
yeah,
the hell? I guess that's what's going on. No, but
yeah.
like, there is that's it's fun because it makes it so it's like, okay, I know I have a half an hour. I can get it done. Let's nail it
Mhm.
down. Let's make sure we get everything done. But in the same sense, like, yeah, you're right. You're like, oh crap. I did my half an hour opening segment, which was getting to know who you are. And
Yeah.
then now we need to talk about the book you're having in. So you have Transformers coming on the shelf on May 1st.
Yeah.
You're like, oh shit, I
It's
gotta get
really
that out
good.
there.
Go
No
get it.
publisher's ever going to want you to have me on again if you don't promote the book.
I actually I have a funny Kevin Eastman story. I got to interview him. I've gotten to interview him 2 times, both times at Planet Comic Con. Both times they were like 6-minute interviews, right? Like
Yes.
one time was in the first time was in a hallway. He let me interview him in a hallway, like in between a panel. And I never aired the footage. I got in my head about it because I was like, I knew they were like, you got 5 minutes with him. I was like up all night. I was like, what do you ask
5 minutes.
the father of Ninja Turtles in 5 minutes? He's never been asked before. That's going to be good content. That's, like basically like one good question with some like follow up bonus material,
Yeah.
maybe, right? But like 5 minutes is one real good question and a couple supplemental things, maybe. And so I was just like, oh my God. And it like came to me in line. Like I was waiting in line to get an autograph, like get some stuff signed. and I was talking to the fans, and we were talking about body count, and it's like it's this adult comic where like Raphael and Casey Jones like go on a murder spree basically. It's just like kill everybody.
Yep.
And people got mad about it. And then when people like even Kevin Eastman mentioned this in this old interview that I never aired until recently, but he was like that Mark Bagley art, like some of it was like it freaked me out seeing the turtles do these things, right? And I asked him, I was like, with the last Ronin being so successful, and like I brought up like DC Black Label and stuff, and I was like, have you guys ever thought about doing like a Ninja Turtle Black Label that like caters to your aging audience that's been there from the beginning and still there now? Like, because we keep getting new elements of Ninja Turtles for new audiences, and we can still enjoy those too. Like that, the new Seth Rogen produced movie was beautiful, and I want more from that world. Like the Nickelodeon 2012 show is a masterpiece. And anyway, and he was like, no, I don't think Nickelodeon will ever let us do that. And he like talked, and it was cool, but I got in my mind, and I was like, oh, you screwed that up, dude. I was like, this isn't. You got to talk to Kevin Eastman, and it was nothing. You ruined it. And so I sat on this footage for 2 years, and then finally aired it on Geek Network for the last Ronin movie announcement when that broke. And I realized that it was a good question, and it was good because the whole deal is Kevin Eastman talking about like the turtles have always been for a wide range of age groups, and ever since they've been popular, there has been different elements for different age groups and different mediums, and like that's what the last Ronin is now, and then we're kind of playing with it, and then now we're gonna get this very adult looking video game, and we're gonna get, I don't know if it's gonna be rated R or not, but it's gonna be catered to the last Ronin catered to a more adult audience. The last Ronin is dark. The turtle, he tries to kill him, like he tries to kill himself and can't. He won't die. Like vengeance, the lust for revenge won't let him die, and like that's messed up, dude. And his three brothers are continuously giving him a guilt trip from the grave. Like it's so dark. And so yeah, like if they do any, like the movie, the video game, anything is not going to be for kids. But yeah, anyway, so I
so what's funny is like I'm thinking to myself right now, I'm like, so out of the 6 people that are listening, eventually going to listen to this or watch this video, that want to care about behind the scenes of podcasting is that shoot your shot. Like that's the big thing. Like, I'm thinking like shoot your shot. I'm like, and honestly, anybody who gets into this, and one of the biggest things, biggest takes, and I've always wanted to do like a tour of the studio area and like what I use for equipment and all that stuff. At some point I'll get to that and when I have some free time. But the idea that like
that stuff,
the biggest things that I've learned from the beginning, and I'm sure we talked about equipment, is like get the equipment.
Yeah.
You're not going to be taken seriously, and you're not going to get good things unless you have the equipment. And it doesn't have to be the top of the line.
No.
But don't go out there and buy the $30 podcasting kit, a kit on Amazon, and think that you're going to get good quality audio and so on and so forth.
Get a USB interface, get a real mic.
All that stuff, get this stuff together and do this stuff right. Research and make sure you know your guests, make sure you know what's going on, and then shoot your shot. It's the same thing. It's like reach out to people. The number of times that you see your creators talk to other creators online, and that's how that comic book came together, is because so X writer emailed Y artist, and that's the reason, and they Twitter DM'd, and that's how this book got together. Like they shot their shot, and that happened. That's awesome. So like if anybody wants to do this, and I also feel like there's space for things. I think people some things overstretch. I work for the brewing industry. People are like, oh, there's too many breweries. I'm like, no, there's space for it as long as you do it right, and you have a plan, and you do it. If you're gonna release consistently. If you're not, one of those things, like, I don't know. There's just a lot of things that go into it. I just feel like one of those things that Kevin Smith, again, another person who I've loved to have on the podcast.
Yeah, that would be crazy.
Like, oh shit! And I have the.
He used to do tons of them too. Now he's too.
And I reached out. We reached because I reached out through Dark Horse to talk about quick stops and stuff like that. I'm like, hey, I could talk quick stop. I'll spend the whole episode talking quick stops as long as I can talk to you. And it's again one of those first email, second email hasn't gone anywhere. So I'm like, let me take it back a second. Wait. But the idea is like, do it. Just do it. Just freaking do it. Just get there and get your shit together and just do the thing. And then that's how Blake got it going. That's how I got it going. We just freaking did it. We just went and said, hey, I'm gonna podcast. Let's do this. And so
Guess what I didn't know how to do when I started podcasting? Edit audio. That's what I did. Guess what I didn't know how to do? Still don't know how to do that great. Edit video. That's why I do live stream. Everybody's like, dude, I like a live stream. I
yeah,
was like, this is cool. You switched. I was like, I switched to that because we go live
yeah,
and then it ends and it stays on YouTube
yeah,
forever. I don't have to edit it or re-upload it. Or I could, I can clip it, short it and
yes,
stuff, which I need to do more. I don't do enough of that, but
yeah,
like I live stream because I'm lazy. It stays there,
yeah,
and it's done. I'm done with it, and there have I feel good because the other day I found out that other podcasters have like someone told me they have like an interview that's almost a year old, and that hasn't got, yeah, because like things get pushed back and
yep,
the stuff happens, and then time goes by and then you forget about it and then you remember it and then you're like, oh no, when am I going to release this? And then you forget about it again and then you're like, well, they just hate me now, so I'll just never
yes,
release it. Anyway,
yes,
I have one of those sitting around, but I talked to another big name podcast and just talking about like being busy and stuff, and they were like, oh dude, like we've got stuff from like last June, and I was like, that makes me feel so much better. I
yes,
was like,
it does.
because I was like, especially this podcast, I was like,
Yeah,
I look at you guys like you're I don't want to like name drop them because they like told
yeah,
me they had an old interview, but like I was like, I look at you guys and you're like you're doing it, and so like, yeah, if you guys have stuff that I'm like, thank you, I needed that.
yes,
So like,
exactly,
but yeah,
exactly.
definitely
It's like
do it. Definitely, like if it's ever, yeah, even if you don't want to do interviews, like
yes,
yeah, like if you want to if you have something you're passionate about, the horror community is great. It was a bummer. Like I really hope TikTok stays around because like it was fun. I for a little bit, like I was like in the fall, and I usually try to do like short videos for like the horror movies I watch
yeah,
and stuff, and it was like I started kind of getting the horror algorithm, and like there's like these cool little communities. So yeah, like get over it. A long time ago, I told somebody that I didn't think anybody would ever care what I had to say, and that was the dumbest thing I've ever said. But at the time, I believed it. It's good to be wrong. People do care what I have to say, but if you have a voice and you're passionate about something, someone will listen.
yeah,
And maybe a lot of people don't listen, right? There's some weeks where I watch stuff and like no one watches it. And then and that's just it. That's gonna happen. That's gonna make you mad. There's no answer to that. But if you're passionate about it and you start having fun doing it, and then you just kind of can't stop. Really, that's what happened to me. The
you can,
upgrades and everything. It's just I don't know what else would I do with
well,
my free time.
you
Like
mentioned you can't stop now, right? So like I started doing the reviews of comic books on our website, and I have
yeah,
a couple other people helping me and so on and so forth. It's we started getting pull quotes on books,
nice.
right? So like we got like Antarctica, which is a great book over there at
Yeah.
Top Cow. Got a quote on the back and so on and so forth. And the first one I noticed it on was Legacy of Violence, Volume 2. I was
Hmm.
scrolling through the advanced copy and I got to the last page. It was like 9 or 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And I'm texting my buddy at the LCS. I'm like, what the fuck? I did no idea and so on and so
Yeah,
forth.
they
So
don't
now I'm
tell
like,
you. They
no.
need to
And then
tell us.
now I'm just gonna do it. I can't like
Yeah.
I can't stop now. I think there is a Geek Network one we're on the same thing together. But now like
Oh,
I've been
really?
like looking at every single trade I've ever done a review for. I'm
Just
always like, okay, I
waiting.
wonder if
Yeah.
there's something on the back of it. And then like when I show our a poll quote showed up at our previews catalog, I was like, the funny thing is 3 people that I know were gonna give 2 shits that I was in a previews catalog. But to me it was like, oh my God, I saved the previews catalog. I
Yeah.
have it.
Like
Like
I'm
I'm
in
like
previews. I mean, it's a
they're like,
big
what is
deal.
this? I'm like, it's a throwaway magazine to order your comics that you want to get. And they're like,
Yeah.
what? I go, it literally should go in the trash after you order. There's no reason to have this thing. And they're like, oh God. I'm like, yeah, see, it's like you can't stop. And the biggest thing to me is like, I just like doing it. Like
Yeah.
in the end, would these creators like to have thousands and thousands and thousands of people watching or listening? Yes, because
Mhm.
it helps them. But in the end, if they're cool with coming on with 15 people watching, then I'm just gonna keep doing it because I get to talk to these people. It's a
Yeah.
private conversation that a bunch of people get to listen to that you would no one else, not no one else, but very few people get to do. So
Mhm.
like I'm gonna keep doing
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Like
No one's gonna stop
I
me.
miss it too. Like I used to work in a bar for a long time, and like those all you do is talk to people.
Yeah.
So you talk, right? And then Yeah, so I like talking to people, and I have like friends, and I have some people like we want to start playing D&D
Yeah.
like locally, and like I'm excited to start doing that. And so like I mean I just don't have a lot of local comic book friends, and
Yes.
so like this is the way I get to network in that field is through social media and the platform. Just be like because like locally, unless I'm at like the Kansas City Planet Comic Con, it's just like I don't know anybody around here who
Yeah.
likes comics.
I have a book club. We go once a month. We read a trade paperback in my LCS. That's that's my spot. Every week I go there to pick up my comic books. But like, yes, you're right. It's like talking to people on this podcast is really where I get most of my stuff
Mm-hmm.
in my discussion about it. And I can mention a comic book and I'd be like, they're not like, what is that? A comic
Yeah,
book? Isn't that what you like read when you're on
they
the
still
toilet and you
make
throw away?
those.
Yeah,
They
it's not
make
for
that.
kids.
Yeah, even my sister when I started this, like I told my because she's into like my sister loves horror and serial
Yeah.
killers and stuff, and she was like, they make comic books about serial killers, and I let her borrow Nailbiter. I was like, read this
Yes.
now.
Yes, you need to read this now. Like
And
I'm still baffles me that that isn't a movie yet. Like I know there's
oh, I
like
know,
there
right?
like how it hasn't gone further in Hollywood is just it shows how screwed up Hollywood is,
Yeah.
honestly, because that is like there's so many comics that went from like the final issue of a comic book onto the screen that are like eh
Hmm.
to the fact that there's like seriously some comic books that I like are some of my favorite of all time. And I'm like, why is it still in like creation limbo here? Like what's going on
Yeah.
there in Hollywood? But yeah, that's awesome though. To
And
have like
that book is just like it's so cinematic too. Like
oh
it reminded me of like it reminds me of like something killing the children. It's just like you finally it's almost hard to read them like when they're coming out because like they move so fast. They have a lot of bigger panels. You know, it's not they just it's not a slow moving book, right? You
no.
don't you know you're flying through it literally. And like you know so like just month by month you know it's just like these quick little moments and then you're waiting as opposed to like finally like when you if you go get like the three nail biter deluxe
Yep.
editions, right? And you can like sit down and reread it all over again and stuff like
Oh, this is not gonna work as my but yeah, like these things are like
those are beautiful. Yeah.
and my number one is actually oh they're all actually this is number two is like little Mike
Nice.
Henderson
I bought
sketch and
my volume one is signed by Mike too. I bought it on a Facebook group and I got it real cheap because the front cover's scratched, but it's still signed
oh
and
yeah
sketched by
yeah
Mike. So I was like, yeah, I don't care. I'm not selling it. Like,
and he's talking about like there's like there's like if they because there's talk there is I have had Mike on here and he said on the podcast that they're working on future nail biter and I
hmm
said cool you have to do enough that I get a fourth one of those because and it has to be matching you cannot screw that up
yeah,
like
yeah,
I
because
have the
there's
three
another trade, right? But that's
yes
it's just like another 6 issues
yeah
out that came out after the three hardcover. Yeah,
yeah
I still haven't read those. I need to read
yeah
those.
tell you right now keep the I
I
love it I love
okay,
it
yeah,
still my favorite but like they need to that was the beginning was so much better than that those
okay.
extra issues but yeah still read it though but yeah so like you are weekly or you try to do weekly you're trying to do like you know you're online regularly doing live streams on
Yeah.
YouTube Facebook and things like that you're also on social media loving comics loving
Yeah,
comic books
I
you
switched it,
just
yeah,
switched it
to
yeah
loving to yeah, because I don't know, I'm weird. I
you're
don't
good loving comic books
know.
but Blake's Buzz you can like obviously search that on
Yeah, if you,
Facebook
I did
on
pick a good
YouTube.
name. If you Google Blake's Buzz, you can find me. I got very lucky with that. Because I think when I launched the blog first, when it was like
Yeah.
Blake's Buzz and comic reviews, and I was like, man, I'm glad. I don't know how Blake's Buzz came from that, but I'm sure glad it did. Right? Like it's like
It
Blake's
works. It's
Buzz and
great.
comic reviews. Like,
It's a great yeah, and it's like I said, it comes up really easily when you search for it and so on and so forth. You have tons of interviews on there with some of the top creators and some indie creators, Kickstarter stuff, all that stuff on there. It's awesome. I'm a regular listener, and I. It's funny. It's like my buddies over they do Bangor Comic and Toy Con, which is like my like next door neighbor comic convention, and then
oh,
this
cool.
one in 2 hours from here in Portland, Maine, called the Maine Comic and Toy Con same ownership and they're buddies of mine. I grew up with them. And they do live streams like, hey, we're getting like we're doing a live stream here and there. And I get like 30 seconds in and I'm just like, I'll listen to it another time. And so I was listening. I listened. I'm like, Kyle Stark's one of my favorite people. I'm gonna listen to this episode. I'm gonna watch it. I'm sitting there. My son is trying to go to bed in his bed next to me, and he's like just falling asleep. And then my wife texts me like, I don't know, 20 minutes later and was like, "Did you fall asleep in the chair?" Like, my phone is like on my lap, my chest right here, like holding it back, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, I gotta go to bed." And I'm like, so I heard up until like I don't know, 15 minutes in, I was listening, and then I'm like, I can't, I gotta go back and listen because I love Kyle. But yeah, it's funny. I'm actually Marvel Unleashed and Peacemaker Tries Hard has a pull quote from us
Hell
on
yeah.
it. Yeah, so I
Marvel
was like,
Unleashed. Oh, I
oh,
cried. My buddy told me that he was like, dude, and I told Kyle that.
yeah,
I was like, dude, Kyle, like my buddy told me like read this before you talk. He didn't tell me like read it. It's gonna break your heart in a little tiny piece. But and then I told him because it's like we just brought home Coco, right?
yeah.
So we got this, we got, and Bruce is the most I love that dude. He's so spoiled though. Like but like I'm very, very, very dog people over here. And so yeah, like that, oh man, D Dog's journey and the Rainbow Bridge. Oh goodness, that was a lot.
Yeah, like, it's beautiful and the beautiful artwork onto it, friggin'
The art's so good.
amazing.
Yeah, I was legit pissed when he was like, he was like, oh, I'm so glad you liked it and wanted to talk about it because no one read it. And I was like, what? Like, let's
Yeah,
fight people. Like, that's bullshit.
it's and same thing as my LCS. I think it's like when I put it on my preview, like when I sent my FOC in
Mhm.
to my LCS, I think he was like, "Oh, I wasn't even gonna order that book," and I'm like, "What are you guys thinking?"
Wow.
First of all, I don't understand how many LCSs and people don't just follow creators. Like Kyle Starks has come out with such great stuff that you just
Hmm.
don't want to get it in because Kyle's writing it. Like I don't understand that.
Yeah.
And the same thing with Peacemaker Tristar. I'm like, dude, Peacemaker is Peacemaker right now. It's so freaking hot right now.
Yeah.
And I think even what my quote was like, it's such a continuation of what James Gunn's Peacemaker is.
Oh my God.
People who are
It's
fans of that
insane.
show will freaking love the comic. So if you're a
Yeah.
fan of that show, like definitely read Peacemaker Tries Hard because it's freaking wonderful. I don't know how this podcast has turned into like a
As a Kyle
Kyle
Starks fan.
Starks
No,
podcast.
so I hit him up because a couple times during that interview, he brings up his Mars Attacks run.
Yeah,
And he like talk and he like I'm like talking about how much like I love his books, and he's like, yeah, they're okay, but like this Mars Attacks run I did, and I was like, okay, I got to read this fucking Mars Attacks run, right?
yes,
And so like
exactly.
I go hit the internet and it's on. I could spend $10 and get it on Kindle.
Yeah,
Okay, like I could get it digitally. There's some he Kyle. I think he was cheeky with me because I was like, yeah, I was like, it's like $30 online. I asked, I was basically like, hey man, like I was like, I'd love to buy one from you if you wanted to sign it, like before I buy a
yeah,
random one online. And he was like, oh, I don't have any. He was like, what are they selling for? And I was like, 30. And he was like, whoa, $30. And I was like, it's not the price. It's just that I was like, I don't
yeah,
know. I could spend $30 and it's probably not gonna come in a Gemini mailer and it's gonna come like folded in half. That's my experience with third party Amazon sellers
yeah,
typically. Unless it says like comic book in their name, they're gonna ship you a book not protected. That's been my luck. Anyways,
yeah,
but I was like, oh my god, like I really, really, really want to read this Mars Attacks run, and I guess I'm probably just gonna have to get it digitally. But
yeah,
yeah, it's not on Hoopla, it's not anywhere, and yeah, I don't like it makes me nervous, like even on eBay and stuff
yeah.
when it just shows a picture of the cover and not an actual picture of the book you're buying, like that's a red flag to me. I
That's
don't like
laziness,
that.
people.
Yeah, it's lazy. It's laziness, and like I want to know if the corners are rolled. I
Yeah.
want to know if the spine has a tick in it. Okay,
See, I
I'll.
don't mind. So the biggest thing to me is like, and people ask that, it's like if a comic book came out this week, say there's like, so like there's a feral variant of this, like the Deadpool,
Mhm.
like there's a feral variant of this from
Okay.
Tony Fleece, exclusive from a shop. And I'm like, if that's just a picture, the book just came out. There's a high chance that I'm gonna get one that's in fairly good quality. Like it's
Mhm.
just but a book that came out that many years ago, you have no idea what dollar
Yeah.
bin that's been sitting in and someone didn't know. Like it's like, oh, I forgot I had this in my collection and so on. So it's been in a short box, unbagged and
Yeah.
boarded. And so yes, like there's these things that like yes, older comics, newer comics, I'll take a more of a flyer on if it's just an
Yeah.
image. But like an older comic, I'm like, like even a couple of years old, I'm not taking that
Or
risk because that's
I've gotten a lot of like, oh, I got a good deal, and then you get a library copy in the mail, and you're like, damn
yes,
it. You
yes,
got me again, eBay. And then you're like, I'm about to send this guy an angry email, and
yeah.
you go like look at the product description, and then
It says
in like the
library.
tiniest font ever, it's like this might actually be a library copy. So if you were gonna send us a mean message, Blake, you can't do it now. And it's like,
The,
damn, you got
the
me.
only one that I got pissed off at is like, so I work for a brewery
uh,
and we did a collaboration with
what
Daniel
did you say?
Kraus.
What brewery you were?
Orono
Where?
Brewing Company. It's in Orono, Maine, at
Okay.
University of Maine. So,
Okay.
but Daniel Kraus, now a friend of mine, his
Yeah.
Whalefall book. He had a book come out called Whalefall.
Mm-hmm.
He's also written Trojan, The Autumnal, and a bunch of
Autumnal,
other
yeah.
stuff. Yeah. But he wanted to do a beer for it. So my brewery did a beer for it for the release, and he came out to do stuff. And so when he came out, I was like, oh, I'm gonna buy a number of your books. So when you're here to do a signing, I'm gonna get
Yeah.
some of your novels signed. So he wrote a book called Wrath. And so I went on, I was like, oh, I was trying to find it, couldn't find it anywhere. And so Thrift Books had it. So I was like, oh, let's do Thrift Books. I got an advanced reader copy. That's what they sent me.
Oh, whoa.
I'm like a library, whatever, but literally it's one that says do not sell on it. It literally
That's
says
funny.
on it, do not sell it. I'm like, I'm not walking up there with an advanced reader copy of a book came out a number of years
Oh,
ago.
I would.
But
I'd be like,
so I had him sign
this
other
is who
things
I
and things
bought
like
it
that. But
from, but please sign it.
but nowadays, he's like, there's certain things that I've actually sent him in the mail and had
Yeah.
him send back because I had to send him
Oh,
beers. He's like,
cool.
hey, it's like, hey, could I send you a book and so on and so forth and so on. But yeah, it was just kind of funny. I'm like, that to me is sketchy. It's like I get
No, that's
the
super
Mad
weird.
Cave sends out those advanced
Hmm.
copies. And I'm like, imagine if I sold that to someone as a regular copy on eBay. It would just like people would be pissed. Or I mean, you shouldn't sell that in the first place. Like that should be
Yeah.
but whatever. But yeah.
Yeah.
But
I keep
yes,
all mine. Like I
yeah, I
like,
have mine. I mine's in bagged and boarded, and actually, I've had creators sign them because I'm like, I feel like, okay, this is kind of cool. It's a unique
yeah.
thing to have, and so on and so forth. But yeah, whatever. But We Live in Comics is your social media, but you can also Blake Buzz, all that stuff. Geek Network. What's the Geek Network website though? Like, is it just geeknetwork.com or is it .net? Is it?
It's not. It's definitely not.
It's like
I think
it's
there's
like
a
a
dash in
hyphen.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Geek hyphen network. Yeah.
Geek-network.com. Yeah.
Honestly, just
Um,
Google Geek Network. It's gonna come up. That's the
yeah.
best
If you,
thing.
it comes up, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's cool, man. We're in that transition period right
Yep.
now, and like I said, we're building this podcast syndicate. We're gonna have like some people, but we get a lot of cool opportunities. We get you know so we've sent some guys to shows to do like
Yep.
press at rock shows and stuff. Some great interviews, opportunities, lots of cool press list opportunities and stuff. And so we really hope to. I love Thomas, and I was hoping he would be my EIC. I was hoping
Yep.
he would be my EIC, and I would be the operations manager. And
Yeah.
that was the plan. Plans change, right? I've always, it's funny, I've always wanted to be this, right?
Yeah.
So like part of me, but it feels weird just because I love Thomas, and I wanted this to happen with us together. But we still talk. We don't play Helldivers anymore because I've been too busy. But we still talk about playing Helldivers and send memes and shorts to each other. So, but like everybody, everybody's in good spirits, and it's just it's a lot of work. But I mean, really, all we want to do is just we just want to put cool geeky stuff
Yeah.
out there for people. We want to do, like, we're getting these like video game review copies and stuff, and we're trying to do like video game yeah, we're just trying to keep the content machine running, and,
Yeah.
and it's hard and it's stressful, but I mean we're all nerds, and we're all excited and terrified, and I think it's going to be good. I think it's going to be cool. I think we're going to grow it into I think we're going to make it even better. It's going to
Yeah.
keep it's going to stay that awesome thing that Thomas made, and I think we're going to keep it's going to keep being something cool, and we're going to be it's going to be a fun place to be to be a nerd, and also for podcasters and stuff. I've said this for a long time. Shows like this, it was so cool you invited me to do this. I see this happen a lot. I see like crossover shows and stuff, and people like guess, and it hasn't happened a lot with me. And I don't know. I don't know. Maybe people don't like me. I don't know. I don't know. Whatever. But like,
I don't like you either, Blake. I just thought it'd be
yeah, no,
fun. No. No.
just like, yeah. Look, I just wanted the measures, man. I don't know. Like, it's like, you'll retweet it. But yeah, it's but I think it's stuff like this is good, and
Yeah.
when I think of like when I started and like Googling stuff and like trying to find like what mics people use, what
Yeah.
software people's use, what then you get to stuff, what settings do people use? I had to do a lot of that on my own, and
Hmm.
it would be cool to offer play, like have a bunch of people that like we do this every day, every week or whatever, and our knowledge is here for you too, like, so that to have shows where, yeah, we talk about what gear we use and stuff like that, and why we bought what we bought, or why the Roadcaster was expensive but made my life ridiculously easier, right? And like sometimes when you do what we do, like, like you mentioned, like buy the stuff and don't always buy the cheap stuff, right? Because cheap audio equipment isn't going to help anybody ever. And like, but like once you start doing this stuff, like things that can make your life easier, things that can make making content easier, producing easier, editing easier, like that's worth so much. And so yeah, if we had a group of people that like, here's what helped me when I got started. I think just having that little community element is something. So yeah, we just want to make the community better and write cool articles and make sure people know where to buy. I want to know, people need to know where. I want you to be broke like me. Spend all your money on stuff you don't need, and I'll show you where to buy it. Come on down. No, yeah. So
I think it's great. Exciting. I think it's great. And I think you're right on the spot on there. And I think one of my biggest goals over the past, like, I don't know, year is to eventually, I'd love to be able to do some sort of a comic book podcasting, like association, where it's like, it's free to join. It's just a networking of people who talk about different things. And I'd love to do awards. I think that there's enough awards out there, but I do think it'd be fun to do, like, you can't vote for yourself, but like kind of like favorite episode of the year, and but also like what's your favorite comic of the year, and what's your, those kind of things too. Like I know they just did the heroic awards and things like that too. Like there's a fun thing. I just think that'd be kind of a cool thing, and I think that there is a place for it. And I think just getting it started, getting it off the ground, and having something to do with it. But like what you guys are doing with Geek Network, I'm so pumped about, and I'm loving. I can't wait for more of that. I love what you're doing over at Blake's Buzz. And stuff like that. So I'm just pumped. I just think that we could probably talk for hours and hours and hours about stuff.
I'm good at that. I don't you watch. I don't shut up. That's this.
So I'm gonna shut you up. Is what I'm gonna do right here.
Yeah,
because I'm gonna This is not gonna be some sort of clean ending right here. I'm like, Blake, shut the hell up. I gotta go. No, we gotta get going. My wife's making dinner. I got a son to go take care of and all that stuff. But no, yeah, definitely. My earphones falling out of my ear because it's sweaty. I don't know, like I feel like the heater's on in here, but it's not, and I'm like sweating balls in here. But yeah, so check out we love in comics, for follow on social media, all that stuff. Blake's Buzz, Geek Network, all that stuff. But yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time, Blake, coming out here talking.
Man. It was a blast. Shit, we'll have to get you on, like vice versa. We'll get you on like when we do like a community chat on the Geek Network channel, or come on. I don't know. Next time I get like Daniel Warren Johnson, you can just sneak on. We'll tag team.
I've always told someone, I'm like, I don't mind being the guy in the corner. If you want me, like, just this guy in the corner every once in a while, just say something. Just sit, like, I'll be the the MC from like the late night TV shows where I'm just like there, and I just like every once in a while I'm just like, yeah, I agree.
What's your favorite ice cream? Like, you watch Kill Tony? Yes. Like Kill Tony's one. It's like every time Red Band talks, all right, Red Band, enough. Like we had enough of you tonight, okay? Like,
but yeah, so like it'd be fun. Yeah, I thought this. Like I said, the community is amazing. The comic book community is amazing, but I feel like the comic book podcasting and interview community is also amazing. And I think that's what's great about the world we live in right now, where like you live in a different part of the country than I live, and we can do this and so on.
Still hang out, yeah,
absolutely. So yeah, we'll do it again at some point, and maybe I'll talk about like a round table kind of thing would be kind of cool. Talk about random shit, but yeah. But thanks again, Blake. I really appreciate it. Everybody should check out Blake's Buzz for sure. And also,
please, we need you. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, and I also like vice versa. Like this is a good channel and a good voice. So like, obviously, you're listening to the show already. I guess you don't need to subscribe to the show you're listening to. All right, I tried to help. It didn't go where I wanted it to go, Justin.
I lost subscribers. No, I'm just kidding. I appreciate it, Blake. I really do. Thanks, man.
It was a blast. It was a good time.